Yesterday was another concerning loss for Syracuse basketball.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, first and foremost, Happy New Year, Happy 2025, and happy holiday season. Now, let's talk about Syracuse basketball. I know, they're not very good, but you know what? This is a full post-game reaction podcast after Syracuse basketball lost yesterday, 81-71 at home to Wake Forest. Now, if you recall, yesterday evening, I gave you guys a 10 to 15-minute post-game instant reaction, but due to timing, I could not make that a full podcast, so that's why I'm delivering you guys a full podcast today. And, well, I was able to listen back to the press conference, and it certainly made some notes on that as well. I think my big takeaway of this game is that it was another winnable one for Syracuse. But once again, a bad basketball team finds ways to lose games. This team could have beaten Texas. They could have beaten Texas Tech. They could have beaten Notre Dame. They could have beaten Georgetown. And they could have beaten Wake Forest, but they lost every one of those games. I'm going to tell you guys in this podcast why this loss was concerning. We're then going to go over the struggles of Chris Bell because, my goodness, they are even worse than any of you guys probably think. And then we're going to talk about this team moving forward. So this loss to me was concerning. And I brought it up at the end of yesterday's mini podcast. Syracuse basketball got 46 points from the trio of Lucas Taylor, Jaquan Carlos, and Kyle Cuffe. Two bench players and one starter who nobody wants in the starting lineup, in Jaquan Carlos, got this team 46 combined points. And they lost. They didn't just lose. Because, hey, well, what if they lost 196? Well, then it would be just a pure defense problem. And trust me, there are problems with the Syracuse's defense this year. It's not good at all. But Syracuse only scored 71 total points. When you get 46 from that trio, Lucas Taylor, Jaquan Carlos, and Kyle Cuffe, it should be a record-setting performance. It should be a performance where Syracuse basketball scores 110 against Wake Forest. But no, they only scored 71. And like I said yesterday, there's basically no way they get that production from those three players again. It's just not something you can bank on going forward. Also of note, Kyle Cuffe did mention in his postgame that he should not be taking that many threes. He was 1 of 8 from downtown. He was best when he was attacking the basket. And I hope that Kyle Cuffe makes that adjustment going forward. So we've established that the loss yesterday was certainly concerning. Are there solutions? Because whenever I call out a problem, I would like to at least try to find the solution, to try to remain optimistic. But I honestly don't know what the solution is. And feel free to let me know in the comments section below what your solution is for this current Syracuse basketball team, which is not very good. They are 6-7 overall. They still do not have a win against a major power conference opponent. So let me know in the comment section below your thoughts. I think getting JJ Starling back, it'll certainly help. I think you would be naive to think that it wouldn't help. It's obviously going to help the team. He's averaging nearly 20 points a game this season before he injured his left hand. And he's got that brace off his hand now, so it appears that he's coming back sooner rather than later. He would give Syracuse another ball handler. Coach Autry at multiple times during this season has used the excuse of, well, this team just lacks players that can handle the basketball as a reason to not play certain players, and why Jaquan Carlos plays nearly the entire game every game. So at least with JJ Starling, someone who can handle the ball, it will give them another ball handler in the backcourt. But he's not going to fix the main two problems. That's the worry I have. It's not like this team was some juggernaut with JJ Starling. Then he gets hurt and they fall flat on their face. You know who can kind of make that excuse? Notre Dame with Marcus Burton. They were really good and then he got hurt and all of a sudden they kind of just cratered. They still beat Syracuse though. What are Syracuse's two big problems this season? They have a lot, but the two big ones are defense and shooting. Two not very good problems. Syracuse basketball is second worst in the ACC in points allowed a game. Syracuse basketball is second worst in three-point makes percentage. They're both second worst. They are equally bad problems compared to the rest of the ACC. And JJ Starling, while yes, he's an elite scorer, he's someone that can handle the ball. They certainly could use another one of those in the backcourt. But JJ Starling is not known for his defense. He is not an elite defender by any means. And he's also not a great three-point shooter. Yes, he had a strong second half at the end of last season where he shot 36% from three. But for his career, JJ Starling is a career 31% three-point shooter. So is he going to help them in terms of how many points they score? Yes. But JJ Starling as the almighty solution, I don't buy it because he doesn't solve their two big problems. Is there a change in the starting lineup as a potential solution? And Coach Autry after the game didn't specify whether or not he's going to run out the same starting lineup on Saturday against Florida State. That leads me to believe that there are going to be lineup changes based on what he said. Syracuse has started slow in at least 3 straight games. It has not been pretty to start games, and the Wake Forest one might have been the worst of them all. They're trailing 19-3 about 5 minutes in. Obviously not good, and Coach Autry basically called out his starting lineup, which consists of Jaquan Carlos, Choppa Moore, Chris Bell, Donnie Freeman, Eddie Lampkin. Basically called them out in his postgame that they didn't start well. Who does that fall on? The players who are starting, right? But I am not sure if a starting lineup change is really going to fix everything. Now, would I do it? Yes, because I don't think you could trot out the same lineup next game. I just don't think you can. The change that I would make, I would take out Chris Bell and I would put in Lucas Taylor. And I would leave in Jaquan Carlos for now until you get JJ Starling back. So I guess my lineup would be Jaquan Carlos, Choppa Moore. I think I would give him maybe one more game. Lucas Taylor on the wing instead of Chris Bell. Then you still go Donnie Freeman and Eddie Lampkin. And if Choppa once again just does not show up, he doesn't play well at all, then you go in with Kyle Cuffe. I still like Kyle Cuffe coming off the bench. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with me on that. So you could do a starting lineup change, and when they get back JJ Starling, it will help this team. But overall, their two big problems of not playing good defense and poor three-point shooting, I don't think can just be solved in the snap of their fingers. I really don't. So, with that being said, Syracuse basketball lost yesterday 81-71 to Wake Forest at home. They started slow. They battled back. They took the lead, but ultimately they came up short. And I don't know what the solution is for Syracuse basketball, even with the things that I just mentioned. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. Coming up, we are going to talk about the struggles of one particular player on Syracuse basketball. And like I said, it's worse than you think. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through the deals was a breeze, and I found great value for all kinds of seats seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best value for the event. I love that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Chris Bell has been Syracuse's most disappointing player this season, and I do not think it's even close. Have there been other players who have certainly not lived up to what we thought they were going to be? Sure, but none bigger than Chris Bell. Last season, Chris Bell, he started and played all 32 games for Syracuse basketball. He averaged 12 points per game. He shot 42% from the three-point line, which was second in the entire conference. And it had myself and probably plenty of others thinking that this is one of the best shooters in the country, and he's going to be a big part of Syracuse's hopeful success for this season. Well, it has not gone his way, to say the least. This season, he's averaging 10 points per game, so just a shade below where he was at last year, but it's the efficiency that is really, really concerning. He is shooting 22% from the three-point line. That's unplayable, 22%. Under 30 is bad. Lowish 20s, you're not a shooter at that point. That's horrific. Chris Bell has scored 9 points in the last 4 games, and he played a season-low 9 minutes yesterday. In fact, it was the lowest amount of minutes he has played since his freshman year in 2023. I can keep going with Chris Bell's struggles. In fact, I'll give you one more. You ready for this? Someone who was supposed to be a three-point shooter, Chris Bell has not made a three in 6 straight games. Feel free to fact check me on it. I'm telling you I'm right. 6 straight games he has not made a three. The last one that he made, I believe, was against Tennessee. That was earlier in December. Oof. So here's the deal on Chris Bell and behind his struggles. I think Bell has talent. I do. I don't think you shoot 42% in a year from the three-point line by accident. And I think he's got the ability to be a very good college basketball player and possibly even an NBA player. I actually read an article, it was dated from before the season, that Chris Bell was someone to keep your eye on, because if he has a big year, he might declare early for the NBA draft and be maybe a mid-second round pick. We know how much NBA teams value shooting. Chris Bell supposedly can shoot. If he could get better in the other aspects of his game, he could very easily be an NBA player. He's got good size. He's 6'7" and he's long. In theory, he should be a good rebounder. And in theory, he should be at least an awesome shooter at minimum. But I don't think he has it. What do I mean by that? I don't think Chris Bell really has that mental toughness that you need as an athlete. And unfortunately for a guy like Chris Bell, he does not have overwhelming ability, in my opinion, to overcome that. The example that I am talking about in this scenario is a very young LeBron James. I know it's a silly comparison, but just hear me out on it for a second. LeBron James won 3 MVPs before he finally won his first NBA championship in 2012. But before that, nobody thought he was the most mentally tough athlete in the world. Nobody, right? He choked against the Dallas Mavericks in the 2011 NBA Finals. But like I said, he had overwhelming ability. So even though he wasn't at the time the most mentally tough athlete, he had overwhelming talent to overcome it and still be an all-time great player before he even won a championship. Then he started winning championships. And now I think it would be kind of unfair to say he's got poor mental toughness. He's one of the mentally toughest athletes in the world, if not the most mentally tough. Put aside LeBron James for a second. The point being with Chris Bell is that he needs to get his head right. How do we do that? Well, it's very simple. Coach Autry laid it out post-game. After Chris Bell was asked about Chris Bell only playing 9 minutes. He's seen his minutes over the last few games really start to nosedive, playing under 20. Autry said that Chris Bell, while he's in this shooting funk, he needs to do other things. He needs to rebound better. He needs to pass the ball maybe, get some assists in there, drive to the lane, play some defense, cause turnovers. That's how you can get out of a slump. But Chris Bell, quite frankly, he's not doing that. He's not. He played 9 minutes yesterday. He had no points. He had no rebounds or assists. He had 2 turnovers. The one positive stat he got was 1 steal, and he was a -10 in those 9 minutes. He was unplayable. And it's a trend that has been going really for the entire season, but it's been more concerning the last few games. So I will stand with Coach Autry on this. I agree with his decision to not play Chris Bell any longer than what he did yesterday. And he should be in the doghouse right now. I know I'm being harsh on Chris Bell, but he just doesn't have it. It's been a massive, massive disappointment. And if he's going to be on the floor and he's not shooting well, he's got to be able to do other things to help the team win. But he's not doing that. And so what does that make him on the floor? Makes him a liability, right? So Chris Bell, he has just been a massive disappointment for Syracuse basketball, and one of the main reasons why this team is maybe not fulfilling its potential it had at the beginning of the season. I hope that he can get it right. I really do. I'm an Orange fan. I'm an Orange alum. I love this team, and I want everyone to succeed. But that doesn't mean I'm always going to play nice. And Chris Bell, the numbers back it up, is not having a good year whatsoever. He's not. So, coming up, what to do with this team moving forward. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. What to do with Syracuse basketball for the rest of the season. They are 6-7. They are 0-2 in the ACC, and none of their 6 wins have come against major conference competition. Truly mind-boggling. And folks, I wish I could be more positive, but I really can't. I think it's going to be a lost year. I really do. It's sad. It really is. This could be the worst Syracuse basketball season since before Jim Boeheim was the head coach. That's how long we're talking about here. For the first time since before Jim Boeheim is coach, or was coach, Syracuse is below 500 on January 1st. Now, they've been below 500 before, actually very recently. The 2022 season, they finished under 500. But when I look back on that 2022 season, I see a team that just had so many close calls, and they had more talent than what their record indicated. That's my opinion. I think they should have been a better team that year. Maybe not a tournament team, but certainly not a team that should have gone under 500. They blew 2 games to Miami that year with double-digit leads in the second half. And Miami was a good team that year. They blew a game at North Carolina at the end. And sure, they had blowouts in that one too, but that team was better than this team. That's for sure. This could be the worst year since before Jim Boeheim was the head coach. And I think the acceptance has really kicked in for myself. I can't speak for everyone else, But at least for myself, the acceptance of this year has really started to kick in. The number one thing that I have accepted is that this is just not a good basketball team. They don't really do anything in particular that well. Where in Syracuse basketball in these first 13 games do you say, yep, that's where they're really good? Where is it? Maybe it's the interior presence at times. I think that sometimes they can be decent at that, but there's nothing that you look at and you say, yes, they're really good in this category. NCAA tournament, you can forget it. They're actually eliminated from at-large contention. It's pretty sad. So the only way they would get in is making a miracle run in the ACC tournament, which I've documented plenty of times on this podcast. You're not guaranteed anymore to make the ACC tournament. It's not like you can go winless the entire year, but hey, if you win 5 games in 5 days, you make the tournament. Oh, no. You got to be top 15 in your conference out of 18 teams. So that means 3 teams are not going to play in the ACC tournament. Oof, right? So you got to be in the top 15. I am much more worried about getting in that tournament than the NCAA tournament, at least right now. There's time for things to change, but I don't see them changing in a hurry. And number 2, the thing that I have accepted is that Adrian Autry is probably going to get a 3rd year, even though he has no business of getting it. He does not deserve it. I'm going on record right now. He doesn't deserve it at all. Does not deserve it. I said that Chris Bell is the player that has been the most disappointing for Syracuse. And maybe, I'm going to stick with that. He's been the most disappointing player for Syracuse basketball, but he is not the number one person to blame for this season. The number one person to blame is Adrian Autry. Because, like I have said before, he cannot have it both ways. If he's an elite recruiter, then why does the team stink? Well, then the team stinks because they're not coached well. Okay, Jackson, but he's an elite coach. So then you're telling me Adrian Autry's not a great recruiter. It's one of the two or a little bit of both. If I were the university, I would honestly be starting my coaching search right now. And I would cast a wide net and hopefully hire the best available candidate. We have seen it work before. Hint, hint, the football team. They let go of Dino Babers. They gave him a long leash. They gave him 8 years. It shouldn't have been 8 years, but they gave him 8 years. And they did a whole search, and they landed on a guy named Fran Brown. Heard of him? Oh, yeah, they were pretty good this year, right? 10-3, beating Miami 10 a year. Bowl game win. Record-setting offense. And Kyle McCord. Guess what? Kyle McCord does not come to Syracuse if not for Fran Brown. And they hired Fran Brown. I understand that he has connections to the Northeast, and that's a good thing, right? But they hired him from Georgia. And they took a gamble on him. He was not a coordinator at Georgia. He was a position coach. He was the DB's coach. But they took a chance, and it worked. With Syracuse basketball, I would do something similar to that. You cast a wide net. I do not want to see this team stay the current course. I don't want to see them hiring within the nest, so to speak. I know a lot of people out there are saying, well, what about Jerry McNamara? Jerry McNamara is included in that. I know he's not with Syracuse right now, but just because he goes 1 year at Siena, nope. No, sir. No, ma'am. I want someone outside the nest to be the next head coach of Syracuse basketball. However, I highly doubt that's going to happen. And I've said why, so I could summarize it for you briefly. They got a top 10 recruiting class coming in, and they're going to use that. They're going to use JJ Starling was hurt for a few games. And it's going to give Adrian Autry probably another year. Even though he has no business of getting one. He does not deserve it by any means necessary, but he probably will. So going forward, is there any hope of salvaging this season? To me, I say pray they make the ACC tournament and make a miracle run. That's about it. Leave a comment in the comment section below your thoughts. on Syracuse's season and Syracuse's game yesterday against Wake Forest that they lost 81-71. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, folks, as far as what is coming up on the podcast in the future, I think later on, either tonight or tomorrow, but bank on it being most likely tonight, John Ray Reed, Syracuse's starting center in football the last 2 seasons, entered the transfer portal yesterday. Didn't have time to make a mini podcast on it, but I certainly have time now to make one. So I will be giving you my thoughts on that very shortly. All right. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And I will see you guys all again very soon.